Across the endless stars, every great empire had rules. Some rules were written in glowing archives, others passed down in whispers, but one law was different from all others. It was not written in books. It was carved in fear, spoken like a prayer, and remembered by every species that valued its survival. The law was simple: do not harm the human children. No one could say when this law was first created. Some believed it was the humans themselves who forced it upon the galaxy. Others said it was written in blood, after a tragedy that destroyed fleets and burned worlds. But no matter the origin, the first law stood above all others. For centuries, it kept peace where nothing else could. Civilizations fought wars, pirates looted, tyrants enslaved, and the powerful crushed the weak. Yet even the most ruthless conquerors stepped back whenever human children were near. Even monsters had learned fear. The reason was not written in treaties. It was written in stories. One story told of raiders who once attacked a school ship carrying human children. The ship was small, unarmed, easy prey. But the raiders did not live to celebrate. Within days, their entire clan vanished. Their bases were destroyed. Their ships turned to wreckage, drifting silently in the void. Not a single raider survived. No one knew how humans found them so quickly, or what weapons were used. The wreckage carried no answers, only silence. Another story spoke of mercenaries who thought humans were weak. They stole a handful of children during a border conflict. Soon after, an entire army of humans appeared. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They tore through defenses, planet by planet, until the mercenaries surrendered in terror. The humans did not ask for land or gold. They only took back their children and left destruction behind as a warning. Every race in the galaxy had heard these tales. Were they true? No one dared to test them. To the Galactic Council, the ruling body of thousands of species, the first law was sacred. Their debates could last years over trade or territory. But the moment the subject of human children arose, silence always followed. Even the proudest rulers lowered their voices. Because everyone knew the cost of breaking this rule was not just war. It was extinction. But arrogance is a shadow that grows in secret. Over time, younger generations of alien leaders began to doubt. To them, humans looked fragile. Their bodies broke easily. Their lifespans were short, and their technology, though strong, was not unmatched. These leaders had not lived through the old wars. They had not seen human fury. To them, the stories were nothing but exaggerated myths told to frighten children. Why should the galaxy bow to one small race? They asked. Why should we live in fear of humans when we rule thousands of worlds? And so, whispers began in the great halls of the council. Whispers that turned into questions. Questions that turned into plans. Still, the law held. For decades, no one dared to cross the line. Fleets passed Earth's colonies without trouble. Pirates turned away when they saw human family ships. Even smugglers, bold and reckless, refused to touch human children. Fear still guided their choices. But laws are fragile things. They are strong when respected, but weak when tested. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, there were always those who wanted to test them. The humans themselves lived unaware of these growing doubts. On Earth, children played under blue skies. In distant colonies, they laughed, studied, and dreamed like children of every world. They were protected not only by their parents and soldiers, but by the weight of the galaxy's oldest fear. And yet, protection is never absolute. Somewhere, in hidden council chambers, a dangerous thought began to grow. A thought sharper than any blade. What if the first law is nothing but a story? What if humans are not the monsters the legends describe? What if breaking the law would bring no fire, no wrath, no storm? To the arrogant, it was tempting. To the ambitious, it was a challenge. And to the desperate, it was a risk worth taking. The galaxy was calm, but the calm was fragile. Beneath the silence, cracks were forming. The law still stood, but it shook under the weight of doubt. And those who doubted forgot one truth that older races still remembered with fear. Humans are gentle until pushed. They are patient until tested. They are peaceful until their children are harmed. And when that happens, the stars themselves remember their fury. The Galactic Council was supposed to be wise. It was the place where thousands of species sent their leaders, their diplomats, and their greatest minds to keep balance among the stars. But wisdom can fade with time, and arrogance can grow in its place. For centuries, the first law of the galaxy, do not harm the human children, had been respected. No empire, no pirate, no mercenary dared to break it. The council itself treated this law as untouchable. But as generations passed, new voices rose in the chambers. Voices that did not remember the old wars. Voices that had never seen the fury of humanity. These younger leaders looked at humans and saw only weakness. To them, humans were fragile, soft-skinned creatures who relied too much on machines. They lived short lives compared to the ancient species who could rule for centuries. Yes, humans had fought bravely in past wars, but many believed those victories were luck, or exaggerations turned into legend. And so the whispers grew louder. "Why must the galaxy bow to one species?" said one counselor from a powerful empire. "Why should we live in fear of their children?" asked another. "They are not gods. They are not eternal. They are only flesh and bone," sneered a third. At first, the council dismissed these words. Old members warned them, "Do not test the humans. Do not forget the first law." But arrogance has a way of spreading like poison. Soon, a small group of ambitious leaders began meeting in secret. They told themselves the law was a chain holding the galaxy back. They said humans had grown too comfortable, protected by their reputation. They claimed that if the law was broken once, and nothing happened, the fear would finally end. But greed mixed with pride, and pride mixed with stupidity. The mistake began as a plan, hidden behind closed doors. One world, far from Earth, had a colony where human families lived peacefully. It was a small settlement, nothing strategic, nothing rich in resources. Just a place where children laughed under artificial skies and parents built quiet lives. That colony was chosen. The leaders believed it was safe. The humans would never know who ordered the attack. The galaxy would remain silent. And when no vengeance came, when no storms of fire arrived, then the law would finally be broken forever. It began with shadows. A fleet of mercenaries, paid secretly by council hands, slipped into the system. They masked their signals, disguised their ships, and entered like thieves in the night. No alarms were raised. No defenses were prepared. The colony was peaceful. Families were asleep when the first bombs fell. Fire tore through homes. Towers crumbled. The sound of children crying echoed into the night sky. And just like that, the first law was broken. For the mercenaries, it was nothing but a job. They thought they would be paid, and then vanish back into the void. For the counselors who ordered it, it was just a test. They thought they would silence an old myth. But the galaxy itself seemed to tremble. The survivors, those few who managed to escape the burning colony, spread the word. Messages were carried on broken signals, desperate cries that reached far beyond the system. Every race who intercepted those signals froze in terror. For they all knew what it meant. The humans would find out. And once they knew, there would be no stopping them. In the council chambers, panic began to grow. The arrogant leaders had expected silence, but instead rumors spread faster than light. Every alien empire whispered the same words. The first law is broken. Some members of the council tried to hide the truth. They destroyed records, silenced witnesses, and erased evidence. But the damage was already done. The universe has no walls strong enough to hide the sound of murdered children. The older counselors, those who remembered the old days, stood in shock. Their voices shook with anger. "You fools!" one shouted in the chamber. "Do you know what you have done? Do you know what is coming?" But the younger leaders still laughed. "The humans will not act. They are too far. They are too weak. Nothing will happen." Nothing? Already, the survivors' cries had reached Earth. Already, human ears had heard the breaking of the law. The galaxy held its breath. Because everyone knew the old stories, even if they had doubted them. Everyone knew what came when humans were peaceful. Everyone knew what came when humans were threatened. But no one, not even the wisest of the council, was prepared for what would come now. Because the humans were not simply threatened. This time, their children had been attacked. And that was the greatest mistake the galaxy had ever made. The colony burned, and silence followed. But silence in the galaxy never lasts. There are always eyes that see, ears that listen, and voices that whisper. The mercenary fleet that carried out the attack thought their mission was secret. They left quickly, leaving wreckage and fire behind them. To them, it was only another job, an easy strike, an easy payment. They believed no one would speak. They believed no one would care. But they were wrong. In the darkness above that broken colony, there were witnesses. Not warriors. Not soldiers. Ordinary people, traders, travelers, and settlers who saw what happened. Their ships hid in the shadows, powerless to fight, but not powerless to remember. And the galaxy remembers through whispers. The survivors, the few human families who escaped, sent desperate messages through broken comms. Those signals were weak, scattered, but they carried one truth. Children had been killed, and that truth spread like fire across the stars. At first, the whispers were quiet. Smugglers spoke of it in secret bars. Traders passed it in coded words. The law is broken, they said. The first law has been broken. Fear grew quickly. The alien species who had once laughed at human legends began to grow cold inside. They remembered old stories, stories they had dismissed as myths. Tales of fleets vanishing, of armies destroyed, of entire systems burned in vengeance. The first law had always been a shield, not for humans but for everyone else. Now that shield was gone. The Galactic Council tried to keep the truth hidden. Records were erased. Witnesses were silenced. The leaders who gave the order denied everything. They thought fear could be contained, but they did not understand fear. Fear is a seed, and once planted, it grows everywhere. On distant planets, alien parents looked at their own children and felt dread. They asked themselves, what will the humans do when they find out? Entire communities whispered the same question. Soldiers in alien fleets looked to the stars, wondering if today was their last day of peace. And yet, while the galaxy trembled, the humans were still silent. Earth had received the survivors' message. The words were broken, desperate, filled with static. But there was no doubt about the meaning. Human children had been attacked. On Earth, leaders did not shout. They did not rage in public. They simply listened, and then they acted in silence. Fleets were placed on alert. Old weapons, dormant for decades, were unlocked. Colonies were contacted. Militias were prepared. Across every human world, quiet meetings began. The galaxy waited for humans to scream, but no scream came. That silence was worse than any threat, because silence is the sound before the storm. Meanwhile, the mercenaries celebrated in hidden bases. They drank, laughed, and counted their pay. To them, it was victory. They believed they had escaped. But among them was a mistake they did not see. A witness. Not all mercenaries agreed with the attack. Some had seen the horror on the colony and felt their stomachs turn. One of them, a pilot with tired eyes, had recorded everything. The fire, the bombs, the cries of children. He had not planned to betray his comrades, but guilt eats at the soul, and guilt pushed him to run. He deserted, carrying the recording with him. For days, he drifted in deep space, hiding from trackers, running from both enemies and allies. At last, his message reached the human network. The proof was clear. The first law was not just broken, it was shattered. The council panicked. They tried to intercept the message, but it was too late. Once truth escapes, it cannot be pulled back. Now, the humans had not only the cries of survivors, but the evidence. The galaxy's greatest crime was exposed. Still, the council tried to deny it. They called the recordings false. They called the survivors liars. But the people of the galaxy were not fools. They had seen the truth in the mercenaries' eyes, in the broken voices of human parents, in the silence of Earth. And so the galaxy became a silent witness. Every race watched, waited, and whispered. Would humans bring war? Would they bring fire? Or would they show mercy? No one knew. But everyone knew this. The storm was coming. Because humans could forgive many things. They could forgive insults. They could forgive defeats. They could forgive wars. But harm their children. And no species survives that sin. The message reached Earth quietly. It came broken, filled with static, a faint signal lost in the void. But within that broken message were voices, weak, frightened voices of survivors. The words were scattered, but the meaning was clear. Human children had been attacked. For a long moment, Earth stood still. The great cities, glowing across continents, went about their daily lives. Children played in parks, ships launched from ports, and families laughed beneath their skies. To the people, nothing had changed. But in the halls of power, silence fell like a blade. The leaders of humanity gathered. Not just presidents and generals, but elders, admirals, and the unseen architects of human defense. They listened to the message again and again. Each time, the same words broke through the static. Fire, bombs, children. There was no anger on their faces. No shouts, no wild speeches. Only silence. Because humans understood something the Council never did. Rage does not always come with noise. Sometimes, the most dangerous rage is silent. The first orders were given in whispers. Fleets were placed on high alert. Colonies were warned. Soldiers were recalled from leave. Across human space, quiet preparations began. In hidden bunkers, old war machines were brought back to life. Weapons that had slept for decades hummed again with power. Artificial intelligences, locked away after past wars, were reactivated and linked into the networks. Codes that had not been spoken for generations were sent flashing through secure channels. The humans did not broadcast their anger to the galaxy. They did not send warnings or threats. They simply began to move. And the galaxy noticed. Merchants traveling through human space saw new warships leaving orbit. Traders passing through colonies found entire starports under military lockdown. Scouts reported human fleets gathering in places once quiet. None of them were told why. None of them dared to ask. But the whispers spread, faster than any fleet could travel. The humans know, they said. The humans have discovered the truth. In the council chambers, panic spread like fire. The leaders who had ordered the attack argued desperately. Some said the humans would never find proof. Some still claimed it was all a myth. But others, older, wiser, knew better. They are already moving, one elder counselor said. Do you not see it? They have not spoken because they do not need to. Their silence is our warning. But arrogance dies slowly. The guilty counselors clung to their lies. Humans cannot fight the whole galaxy, they said. Their fleets are strong, but ours are stronger. They will hesitate. They will fear us. Yet in the stars, hesitation was nowhere to be seen. On Earth, the factories worked without rest. Shipyards that once built explorers now built warships. Civilian engineers found themselves called into military service. Farmers donated supplies. Scientists turned peaceful projects into weapons research. Humanity was not preparing for a war of defense. They were preparing for vengeance. And still, no declaration came. The galaxy waited for humans to shout. But humans did not shout. They listened. They planned. They sharpened their blades in silence. Meanwhile, the survivors of the attacked colony were brought to Earth. Their stories spread across human worlds. Families who had lost their children spoke with broken voices, and those voices carried into every heart. Humanity was not divided by distance or politics. They were united by grief. In the training grounds, young soldiers volunteered in waves. Veterans returned from retirement, putting on uniforms once more. Fleet commanders stood at attention, their eyes cold with purpose. The humans did not ask if they should strike back. They asked only when. On alien worlds, fear deepened. Parents told their children to stay indoors, as if the coming storm could be hidden from. Armies doubled their defenses. Some empires began to beg the council for peace talks, for explanations, for anything that could stop what was coming. But it was already too late, because when humans discovered the truth, something ancient stirred inside them. Not just anger, not just vengeance, something older, something primal. The galaxy had forgotten what humans truly were. They had looked at fragile bodies and short lives and thought them weak. But they had forgotten the fire in their hearts. They had forgotten that humans were not shaped by peace, but by struggle. They had forgotten that when humans rise together, no empire, no council, no fleet can stand against them. The humans had discovered the crime. They had uncovered the betrayal. And now, every preparation, every silent movement, every ship built in secret carried one promise. The promise that the galaxy would soon remember why the first law was written in the first place. Fear has no borders. It does not care about species, empires, or the color of the flag above a world. Fear spreads faster than light, faster than any ship, faster than any weapon. And when humans began to prepare in silence, fear began to spread across the stars. At first, it was only whispers. Merchants carried stories from one port to another. Human fleets are moving. Their shipyards are alive again. Old weapons are being reactivated. The whispers grew into rumors. Rumors grew into warnings. Warnings became panic. In distant colonies far from Earth, alien governors watched human convoys passing through their systems. The ships looked peaceful, freighters, carriers, transports. But behind them, shadows of warships followed. Silent, cold, watching. Smugglers who once laughed at humans now refused to travel near their space. Pirates who once hunted trade lanes abandoned them completely. Even mercenaries, the fearless predators of the galaxy, began to vanish. They knew the storm was coming, and no amount of pay was worth being in its path. On council worlds, debates turned into shouting matches. Some leaders demanded apologies, desperate to calm human wrath. Others demanded more lies, insisting the attack was not real, that the proof was fake, that humans were bluffing. But every day the evidence grew clearer. Every day the fear spread deeper. In homes across alien civilizations, parents told their children old stories. Stories they once dismissed as legends. They spoke of the time humans destroyed entire fleets for a single insult. They spoke of mothers who crossed the stars to take back their stolen children. They spoke of human wrath like it was a living thing, a storm of fire that no wall could stop. Children listened with wide eyes, and for the first time they believed the stories were real. The galaxy began to divide. Some species whispered that the council should confess, admit their crime, and beg the humans for forgiveness. Others argued that humans must be contained, that their vengeance should be stopped before it began. But none of them dared to strike first. No one wanted to be the target when humanity finally moved. Meanwhile, in human space, preparations continued. Fleets trained in silence. Factories produced weapons in endless rhythm. Soldiers stood ready, their eyes burning with purpose. But what frightened the galaxy most was not what the humans said. It was what they didn't say. There were no threats, no declarations, no broadcasts of anger, only silence. And silence was far more terrifying than words. On one council world, an old historian stood before the chamber. His voice shook as he spoke. Do you not see? The humans have not declared war because they do not need to. Their silence is the answer. Their silence means they are already coming. But the arrogant leaders did not listen. They shouted him down. They still believed their fleets could resist. They still believed humans were only flesh and bone. And yet, their people did not believe them. Citizens across the galaxy hoarded supplies. Ships fled border systems. Refugees filled starports, begging for passage away from the paths leading toward human space. Armies stood on high alert not to fight humans, but to prepare for survival. The fear even reached the mercenaries who had carried out the attack. Hidden in distant systems, they began to realize payment would not save them. They heard the whispers, they saw the panic, and they understood the truth. Once humans discovered their names, their bases, their fleets, there would be no escape. One mercenary captain spoke bitterly to his crew. We are already dead. The only question is when the humans will come. Across the stars, fear was now the common language. Empires that once hated each other now shared the same dread. Enemies looked at one another and whispered the same thought. Better them than us. And so the galaxy waited. waited for the storm, waited for the vengeance, waited for the moment when human silence would turn into fire. But waiting is its own kind of torment. Every flicker of light in the void could be a human fleet. Every signal could be the first step of war. Every silence in the stars could mean the humans were already there, already watching, already preparing to strike. The galaxy had always thought the first law was for humans. But now they realized the truth. The law was for them. It had been their shield, their protection, their safety from what humans became when their children were harmed. Now that shield was gone. And every world, every empire, every parent looked to the stars with the same question burning in their hearts. When will the humans come? The galaxy waited in silence. For weeks, for months, the stars seemed frozen, holding their breath. Human fleets moved in secret, their signals hidden, their paths unclear. Alien leaders begged for answers. Empires reinforced their borders. But no answer came. Then one night, across the void, the silence broke. It began at the edge of known space, in a system owned by mercenaries. They were the same who had bombed the human colony. They believed distance would protect them. They believed lies from the council would shield them. But the humans had found them. The attack was not announced. There was no warning, no demand, no broadcast of threats. Human warships appeared in the dark like shadows of death. Black hulls, cold engines, silent weapons. The mercenaries saw nothing until the first of their bases exploded in fire. In minutes, their fleets tried to respond. But the humans fought differently. They did not charge with noise. They struck with precision, cutting engines, slicing through defenses, burning ships one by one. No survivors were allowed to escape. No signals were left to warn others. The mercenary system died in silence, the same silence the humans had kept since the colony burned. And this was only the beginning. System after system, the humans moved. Always without warning. Always without mercy. Every base that had taken part in the attack vanished. Every commander, every captain, every soldier who had accepted the council's payment was erased. Their names were removed from existence, as if they had never been born. The galaxy began to shake. Alien governments tried to send messages to Earth. They offered apologies, excuses, even bribes. Some begged for mercy, claiming they had no part in the crime. But the humans did not answer. Their fleets kept moving, silent as the void, burning every guilty hand that touched their children. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council was powerless. They tried to call emergency meetings, but half the members refused to attend. They feared being in the same room as those who ordered the attack. They feared humans might strike the council worlds themselves. And fear was not misplaced, because soon human fleets appeared at the edges of council-controlled space. Thousands of ships, black and silver, moved like one body. They did not speak. They did not threaten. They simply arrived. The council ordered their navies to defend. Armadas of alien warships gathered, forming walls of steel and fire. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. Their weapons were powerful, their shields advanced. But numbers and technology mean nothing against fury. The battle began in silence. The human fleets advanced without hesitation. Alien weapons lit the stars, but the humans cut through them with cold precision. Where others fought with strategy, humans fought with rage disguised as order. They did not stop when ships fell. They did not retreat when outnumbered. Every loss only made them faster, sharper, deadlier. Entire fleets collapsed under their assault. Alien commanders watched in horror as centuries of power crumbled in days. For every human ship destroyed, 10 enemy ships burned. For every soldier lost, entire enemy crews vanished. The galaxy had forgotten this wrath. Now it returned. World after world fell silent as human fleets passed. Some surrendered instantly, dropping their weapons, begging for mercy. Others resisted and were erased. The message was clear. Humanity was not here for conquest, not for empire. They were here for vengeance. And vengeance does not negotiate. Stories spread like wildfire. On one council world, A senator who once mocked the first law was found burned in his own palace. On another, entire defense networks shut down the moment they saw the human fleets, armies too terrified to even fight. The galaxy realized the truth too late. The first law had not been a myth. It had not been a story told to frighten children. It had been a shield, a warning, promise. And now, the humans were reminding everyone why it existed. The council begged for peace. They offered treaties, gifts, entire planets. But the humans did not respond. Their silence remained unbroken, their fleets unrelenting. Because this was not about politics. This was not about territory. This was about children. And for every human child harmed, 1,000 enemies would burn. The return of wrath had come. It did not roar. It did not scream. It moved like a shadow, like a storm without sound, and it left nothing but silence behind. And across the galaxy, every race understood the truth. The Council had made the greatest mistake in history. They had broken the first law. And now, the humans had returned to remind them what that truly meant. The galaxy was silent. Worlds that once shone with pride now burned as ash. Fleets that once filled the stars now drifted as broken metal. The Galactic Council, once the voice of power, sat in ruins. Its halls empty, its leaders scattered or dead. The humans had come. The humans had struck. And the humans had won. But victory was not their goal. Conquest was not their desire. From the very beginning, humanity's wrath had been shaped by only one reason: vengeance for their children. And now that vengeance was complete. The mercenary fleets who carried out the attack were gone. Not a single one remained. The council members who gave the orders had been erased, their names wiped from memory, their worlds marked with fire. Every guilty hand that touched a human child had paid the price. Yet still, the humans did not speak. No grand speech was made. No declaration of triumph echoed through the stars. They came in silence and they left in silence. It was the galaxy itself that spoke for them. On alien worlds, parents whispered to their children what had happened. They told of fleets vanishing, of armies collapsing, of empires begging for mercy. They told their children that the first law was real, and that it had been broken, and this was the price. Fear was no longer just fear. It had become truth. The council tried to rebuild, but its power was gone. Entire species withdrew from its chambers, no longer trusting the old order. New leaders rose, their first priority not trade, not expansion, but survival. And survival meant only one thing: respecting humanity. Across the stars, a new law was spoken, carved into every mind. Never touch the children of Earth. Never break the first law again. But this time, the law was not a whisper. It was not an old legend. It was a command burned into history by fire. No species doubted it now. No one dismissed it as myth. They had seen what happened with their own eyes. They had watched entire fleets fall in silence. They had felt the fear in their hearts. And they knew, beyond any doubt, that if the law was broken again, the humans would return. And this time, nothing would remain. For humanity, the war was over. The fleets returned to their worlds. Soldiers went home. Mothers and fathers grieved their lost children. But they also stood with pride. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to strike at the heart of humanity. On Earth, children played under blue skies once more. In distant colonies, families rebuilt their homes. And though grief would never vanish, hope grew in its place. Because every human knew the truth. The galaxy would never dare harm them again. The stars themselves seemed quieter. Pirates avoided human space as if it were cursed. Smugglers whispered warnings whenever human colonies were near. Even the most powerful empires walked carefully, treating human diplomats with respect they gave to no one else. The law had changed everything. But among humans, there was no celebration. No parades filled the streets. No songs of victory were sung. Humanity did not see glory in vengeance. They saw only duty, only the promise they had kept to their children. And that promise would remain forever. Generations later, children of alien species would still ask their parents, "Is it true? Did the humans burn whole fleets for their young?" And the parents, with fear still in their voices, would answer, "Yes, it is true. That is why we never touch them. That is why we never forget the first law." The galaxy had learned. The council had fallen. And a new order stood in its place. An order shaped not by treaties or trade, but by one unbreakable truth. When humans are peaceful, the galaxy is safe. When humans are threatened, the galaxy trembles. But when their children are harmed, the galaxy itself burns. And so, the first law was not just restored, it was rewritten stronger than ever. No one dared to test it. No one dared to forget. Because everyone now knew the cost. Everyone had seen the wrath. And in the silence of the stars, the new law lived. Never harm the children of Earth. Never forget what happens when you do.